Well, good afternoon, Prynhawn Dar, and welcome, croeso, to this multi-location meeting of Cabinet Scrutiny Committee on the 13th of December 2023. I am Councillor Phil Rogers, and I'll be chairing this meeting. Please could you ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members who are virtually viewing this meeting could raise your electronic hand, and for members in the council chamber, just raise your hand. Before we move on to the duties before us today, I'd like to congratulate Shelley Howard, who's been appointed Head of Housing and Community. Congratulations. On to the business of the day. I have been notified that item 19 from the Cabinet agenda has today been withdrawn. For the purposes of declarations, I would like to confirm that we'll be scrutinising items 7, 10, 11, 13A, 15, 16, 17 and 18. Moving along to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Can I take any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's going to be agenda item 7, page 31, Knoll Park. I have a personal interest. My wife works there.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Are there any others, please? I don't see any indications, so we'll move along. Agenda item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. Minutes are attached at pages 5 to 12 of the agenda pack. Do you have anybody who wishes to make comments on the minutes, please? I can't see any indication. If you feel these are an accurate record of the meeting, I am happy to propose them. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Moving along, agenda item 4 is pre-decision scrutiny. We're going to now move to the Cabinet Board agenda. First up this afternoon is item 7, quarter 2 revenue budget monitoring for 2023-24. These are on pages 25 to 44 of the pack. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Yeah, just very briefly, Chair. Thank you. So this is the revenue budget monitoring report as at the end of September in front of Cabinet today, and obviously scrutiny now. As at the end of September, we were projecting a £3.4 million overspend as a council. Obviously, what we have done since then and what we continue to do is to make sure we try and drive that down as much as possible to make sure that time we get to the end of the financial year, that overspend is minimised and we protect our reserve balances to the maximum extent possible. Just in terms of drawing members' attention to an exercise that we've undertaken in the Corporate Directors Group over the summer and autumn, where we have looked at every single specific reserve that we hold and to determine, members, whether that reserve is still required for the purpose it was originally intended or for the value, or looked at whether there's any alternative sources for those purposes. So we have actually managed to repurpose 7.899 million of specific reserves, and the intention is then to prime 3 longer-term transformational initiatives using those reserves, 2 of which are on the agenda this afternoon with more detail, with another one to follow to an Education Cabinet Board in the new year. So as I say, we've been through every single reserve, looked at them, allocated, repurposed 7.899 million, and we'd be using that funding then to deliver investment to drive down sort of longer term costs to the council. So that's not something we've done previously, Chair, so I thought I would raise that and bring it to members' attention in the meeting so they're clear as to exactly what we've done. So diolch, thank you.
Many thanks, Hugh. We'll move now to members' questions. First up, indicated is Carol Clement Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. I thought you were bringing Suzanne in first to make a comment on the size of the papers.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that at the beginning. We'll come back to it at the end of this. Thank you.
Okay, right. Yes, thanks, Chair. Couple of questions. Well, I've got a few questions. In education, page 27, halfway down education, leisure and lifelong learning, Based on costs to date, ELL Directorate is projected to overspend by 132k. Assuming additional funding isn't provided to cover the additional pay award, I'm just wondering, where would that additional funding become? What additional funding were they referring to there? Would that be Welsh Government? I just need a yes or no.
Shall I come in on that, Chair?
Yes, please. So we'll do them one at a time. Thank you.
Yes. So when we set the directorate budgets, we allowed a 4% pay allowance. We also allowed 2% within a contingency budget, Councillor Clement Williams, to cover pay awards that may be over 4%. So what we'll be proposing to do is to use that contingency pay budget to then allocate the cost back to the service directorates and schools in relation to non-teachers pay, to make sure that they're fully funded for those pay awards, which were over 4%. So hope that clarifies that.
So it's money that's within the council already then, basically?
That's right, Carol.
Lovely,
yes, within,
lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Home to school transport. I had a question on this, but we've had an email today with a slideshow on it, which mentions that it's been externally reviewed, the home to school transport policy, which has answered the question asked yesterday. But a subsequent question from that would be, who was commissioned and how much did it cost?
Who? Yep. Oh, sorry, Andrew Thomas, please.
The answer to who was commissioned is Edge Public Consulting, and how much it costs, I'm going to look to £900,000 over 3 years. Is that correct? Yeah, £900,000 over 3 years, Carol.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
Is there any chance I can have some more information on the work that they're doing or done?
There was a report brought to Cabinet, I don't know if it was last time or the time before, but certainly I can find the report and send it to you, Carol.
Sorry, Andrew, we've had so many papers coming through.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, it's busy time. Yeah, I can do that.
Lovely, thank you. Next, Chair. Oh, the social services. I had a question on that. Would just like to have an opportunity for members to ask questions about that, not just the Social Services Committee, because it's one of the biggest strains on the council, and I'm sure that it would take more than just one item in an agenda of 19 items, so that members have a chance to understand it properly. Wondering if that could be done.
Thank you, Carol. Can I bring Andrew Jarrett in for that one, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor. I'm happy that after Christmas we're going to be presenting more detail on this to our Cabinet and Scrutiny Committee, and I'd be happy to invite anyone who wants to come along to ask questions around that.
It
Thank
would
you,
be
Andrew.
great. It would
Back
be
to you,
great, Andrew.
Councillor Clement Williams.
Thank you. And I think it's a specific invitation to all councillors would be an idea on that one, because I'm sure most of us want to know what's happening. It's a crisis, isn't it? And not of our own making. And
Just,
we really
Carol,
need to
if I could
understand it.
Carol, if I could stop 1 second, sorry. It'll be up to the chair of the committee to actually provide the invites to the members for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
It's kind of a request to that chair to do that, Chair. I've only got one or two more. One more.
Page 42, I think it is, the LUF.
No, that's fine. I had that answer yesterday. Page 33. Income generation. Any investment required will be capital, not revenue, and will need to be funded through the capital programme. Is that... It's an environment. Does that mean the 1.5 million is being transferred into a capital budget, or the 1.5 million has been withdrawn and we'd have to get money separately from another budget? Or does it mean that we're not investing to speculate to accumulate? Just wanted some clarification on that.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. If I can bring Hugh in on that one, please.
Thank you. So what we're saying there is the £1.5 million revenue reserve that we set aside for income generation has been repurposed in effect to fund these longer term investment proposals. But there is an annual allocation already within the capital programme for income generation as well. So we will be using that capital programme allocation to fund any of those works that we need to invest in, because obviously the vast majority of income generation will require investment, which will be capital of nature. So we're taking this revenue reserve because we need to repurpose these reserves to deliver these longer term transformation proposals, but we are still maintaining within the capital programme the annual income generation budget to support that area of work.
Many thanks, Hugh. Councillor Clement Williams, would you like to anything further to add? Thank you.
Yeah, so when you're saying it's being repurposed, then there isn't now any extra monies. If somebody comes up with another idea for income generation that needs a small investment to get it going, that's no longer there. But if that's no longer there, would they have an opportunity to try and get it from somewhere else?
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, there is money there in the transformation programme. Anybody who comes to me with, or comes to us as a corporate directors group rather, with proposals that actually would mean we can invest and deliver longer term savings or income generation to cover the cost is more than welcome. So that funding will always be made available. And as I said, there is an annual allocation already committed within the capital programme as well to support that area of work.
That's lovely, thank you. And finally, from me, on page 42, yes, Chair, remembered now, it was a different question, wasn't it? It's showing red in that table. I'm wondering why it's red.
Hugh, please.
Yeah, so that was a proposal that we had around a saving in the Knoll Country Park, which is not able to be delivered during this financial year because of the proposed work that's going to go on in the park in terms of the large levelling up fund project that's there. So that savings target of 30,000 is not achievable in that service area in this financial year in particular. But obviously the investment in the park will be very much welcome and will hopefully deliver more than that in terms of savings going forward, or increased income rather. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Councillor Clement Williams.
Yes,
thank
you so much for your indulgence, Chair. But most of my questions today were on this item. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Moving along, next up I have Councillor Tim Bowen, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairs. Thank you, members. It's just one question on the Knoll. Each summer we've always had an events up there through the holidays and so forth. For some reason, we lost that this year to Skewing Park. We had a 105k shortfall at the Knoll, or sorry, overspend. This event drags a lot of people into the park, and it seems we lost all this revenue this year. Are we looking to try and get this back to the Knoll when it reopens in a couple of years' time?
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Can I bring Nicola in on this one, please?
Thank you, Chair. As members will be aware, we have secured the Levelling Up Fund award to enable us to invest in improving the facilities at the park. As a consequence of that successful funding bid, we're going to go through a procurement process going forward to establish the best activities and the best value for money in the park, rather than making a direct award to one provider. So in the past, there has been one provider who has been in the park who has run the activities on behalf of the local authority, but we are choosing in the future to go through an appropriate procurement process to ensure that we've got transparency and value for money for the local authority. Who was mentioned, the Levelling Up Fund will enhance all the facilities in the park and should result in a significant increase in income, and some of the measures that we were going to put in place to reduce the subsidy in the past will also be put in place so we can better control the parking income side of things to prevent people from visiting the park and failing to buy a parking ticket. So in answer to your question, we are going to have those activities in the future, but we're going to do it through a procurement process rather than a direct award.
Many thanks,
Okay,
Nicola.
thank you.
Councillor Bowen, would you like to come back?
Yeah, Yeah, it just seems, we lost it this year, and we saying we had an under 105 short for overspend. It could have been something we could have done this year and then looked at it when we come back after the park has been refurbished. It just seems a shame we lost it to Skewing Park. They had it free of charge. It dragged a load of our customers up that way, and we had that overspending and all. But it is what it is.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Your
Thank
point
you.
has been duly noted. Thank you. I've got to make an apologies. We moved on to item 7 before I've got a couple of representations. My apologies. Before I started the cabinet agenda, I should have brought in a couple of people who wish to speak on the times available. Can I bring in Councillor Suzanne Paddison, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. You're forgiven. I would like to say about the number of items and the timescales and scrutiny in general. And I know that we are having a look at scrutiny within the council. It's going to be a process going forward. However, I'm worried. I am worried about the level of scrutiny that can be given to the cabinet at meetings like this, when there are 374 pages to scrutinise, and a lot of them are financial tables. It takes an awful long time for each item to be gone through. I did complain about this, and I was told that in pre-brief, and I was told that the papers were issued within the timescales, and I'm not saying they're not. They are, but when I received training from the council, you paid for training for me to have the training on scrutiny. The person who came to deliver the training said that agendas like this are just not effective, and really you should be choosing how many items as a chair that you actually put on an agenda. So the timescales are right for the smaller amount of items that is recommended, but when you've got, we ended up with 18, but I've looked through 19 and I've read through them twice. In scrutiny, in pre-brief, a question was asked, has anybody read this whole report? And there was only one that had read the whole report at that point. Now, a lot of people would criticise the members for that, but I just want to make a cry out that members are busy. Members want to do the best we can possibly do for the council. We've had a plea from the leader to all work together, and that's exactly what we do in scrutiny. We work together to make sure that the proposals gain our confidence in, and then we recommend to cabinet, yes, go ahead with those, or no, we have concerns. And I just think that we really need urgently to address the fact that there's not sufficient time. I'm not happy with my own standard of scrutiny when there are so many items here. I take my work quite seriously. I don't want to skim over things. I don't want to just accept things and give them the nod. I work hard as a local member to try and be part of the council. I just hope that going forward we can really knuckle down and not have nearly 400, sometimes 500 pages in other committees of reports to be gone through within a week. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Can I bring Chief Executive Karen in on this one, please?
I think, as you say, we've discussed this before, haven't we? And it is tied up, I think, in the review of scrutiny that we are undertaking in parallel with the conversation we're having. I did, after the last couple of meetings, go and have a look at what's happening in other councils as well, and not that it addresses any of the concerns you raise, but it's pretty typical, actually. The cabinets have got large agendas with large numbers of papers on them. So the only thing I can think of between now and whenever we conclude the scrutiny review is that essentially we have more meetings, because the business is the business and we need to be able to get through the business. So, we've been having this conversation with the Cabinet as well. If it helps members to have more meetings where, people have this in smaller bite-sized chunks, that is something that we can move to do between now and the start of the civic year. But then we obviously need to be consulting with members, because that does mean then more time out of your diary to attend more meetings.
Yeah, in the short term, Karen, I think that's the only way forward. But I have put my name forward, you wouldn't doubt it, would you, to be part of the group that looks at this. And then there have been suggestions made to me, which I seem quite sound so far, but I will be discussing those when we form that group, to try and make it. I just want the decisions to be safer. I mean, if you haven't had time to read the report in as much depth as you'd want to, then any decisions or recommendations that you make, can they be regarded as sound? I say no, but others people may object, they may disagree with me. But thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. We were thinking now, shall we get the view of the whole committee, whether they want to go down the route of having more meetings, smaller meetings?
If you need to propose, I'll propose that. Chair.
Okay, thank you. If you could, please.
I propose that if the chair needs or thinks that it would be beneficial to have a meeting in between. I'm not asking for every meeting to be set in stone like the schedule, but if you believe that, it would be beneficial to have an extra meeting, I propose.
Relieve the workload. And can I have a second, please?
Yes, I second.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councillor Goldsworthy. That's
Clement
great.
Williams.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams as well. Is there anybody who wishes to abstain from this? Yeah, okay, we're going to take this forward from that. We've had a recommendation and a proposal and a second. Now we will just take this forward from that, and hopefully to reduce the workload, we'll split up the meetings in future. Thank you. Let us come back to item 7 then. Does anybody else want to make any comments apart from those who previously indicated on item 7, the revenue budget? I can't see any indications, so we'll move on. The recommendations is listed on page 34 to 35 of the Cabinet agenda. I am happy to propose it. Could I have a seconder, please?
I second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Can members please indicate if they wish to abstain?
I can see no abstentions, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
Can't see any indications to the contrary, Chair, so the recommendation is supported to Cabinet.
Many thanks, Alison. Moving along to our next item on the agenda, this is item 10. It's the Treasury Management Mid-Year Review for 2023-24. These are on pages 69 to 84 of the report. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Just in terms of context, Chair, so as you say, this is the mid-year review report that we're required to bring to Cabinet just to bring members up to speed in terms of Treasury management activity as at the end of September. So as ever, Chair, happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Many thanks, Hugh. We move on now to members' questions on item 10. First indication I have is from Councillor Carol Clement Williams, please.
Thanks, Chair. And I think that this kind of goes nicely with what we've just discussed with Suzanne. So I've in the report too, even I obviously it was in the cabinet member role for finance, so I'm quite used to the finance speak, but I do understand that some of my colleagues struggle with it. I have asked for more training for members to understand a council's budget and how it works. And I did mention quite some time ago around WLGA having a oven ready, although I don't like that phrase anymore, but that's the best way to describe it, training package, and then I'd be happy to come down to the council and give us that training. But with that in mind, on page 72, there's quite a number of acronyms throughout the report as well. And I was wondering if you could explain to my colleagues what 100 BPS stands for. Excuse me. Or at least that it means 1%. If we could have that in brackets after that and in subsequent reports, it would just be easier reading and would be enable members to understand these reports better. And we've got things like SIPFA, which I've been to meetings on, the Chartered Institute of Public Finances and Accountancy, and there's a mention of GILT, which is a low risk default and a low rate of return. And I think that some more training on this is needed, and a key of what some of these acronyms mean. I'm sorry to sound like a repeat record, but it is something I brought up before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. We'll bring Craig in first, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams, for the question with regards to the training element. Just to sort of pick up on that point as well, obviously the Democratic Services Committee have a work programme as well, where they look at member development training, and obviously different opportunities came out then in respect to the survey as to additional training. It wasn't one of the ones that was initially flagged up at that point, but obviously taking on board the comments here, we look to see about the different options that could be available, and we'll pick that up then as part of the work with the member development programme that we're running through the Dem Services Committee.
Many thanks, Craig. And if I could pass over to Hugh on the acronyms question, please, Hugh.
Yeah, I'll cover that and the training issue more specifically as well, Chair, if I can. So BPS stands for basis points. So basically, you will hear when the Bank of England changes the base rate, it's raised by 25 basis points, so basically 0.25%, or as you say, Councillor Clement Williams, 100 basis points is 1%. So that's what that stands for, but I will take on board the fact that it is an acronym here, make sure we expand on that. As you say, a gilt is basically a government bond where people would buy a bond and get a return on their investment. In terms of training, there is a requirement actually under the Local Government Act 2003 and Treasury Management and Prudential Code to make sure that members are adequately trained in Treasury Management. So if members are minded, I will arrange in the new year, probably once the budget's been put to bed, so to speak, an actual specific training session online with some of our Treasury advisors, so they can bring members up to speed with some of the things they should be looking out for in this particular area. So if members are minded to do so, I'll arrange that. And in terms of your second point about the WLGA, interestingly enough, the Cabinet Member for Finance and myself have been in discussion with bringing John Ray down as the Director of Resources for the WLGA to do some sort of simple, that sounds derogatory, some sort of training for non-financial people in terms of local government capital and revenue budget. So again, we talked about doing that again once the budget's out of the way. So maybe in the spring, we can sort of convene 2 different training sessions for members in those 2 particular areas, Chair. So thank you.
Okay, that's fabulous. I look forward to that. Councillor Clement Williams, if you'd like to come back, please.
Thanks, Chair. I don't need the other question answered because I understand it now. What I would say, though, is I very much welcome what he was said. As you're aware, I've mentioned it in a couple of budget meetings now that John Ray would be prepared to come down, and I'm really pleased to hear that you've been in discussion with him around that. But I think it's an awful shame that we've got all these reports on the budget, and I've been the only person so far that had asked any question. So to me, that tells me that maybe some of my colleagues don't understand, and I'm not trying to be derogatory. Even I've had to look up some things in this report. So I very, very much welcome what you've just said. I think that's enough for me, Chair, until my final item, which is right at the end of the report. You'd be glad to know.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Thank you for some really good points there. Thank you. Are there any other questions on item 10, please? The Treasury Management Mid-Year Review. I can't see any indications there. So this report is for monitoring only. We move along to item 11. This is the Q2 performance monitoring, pages 85 to 118 of the report. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Nothing to add, Chair. Diolch.
Thank you, Nolwenn. We'll move on now to members' questions. On item 11, and first up, I have Councillor Sonia Reynolds, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions, two things I want to raise. Well, perhaps three in the way it works out. There's been a decline in Welsh speakers. It's small, but it's there, and that's obvious in that. And we're also seeing a decline in the number of employees who report as learners, which is of concern, and an increase in the number of employees quite a dramatic increase, who don't want to say, which gives me a bit of a worry about people feeling pressure and things like that. So I'm wondering what's the underlying cause of that. That's aligned with the fact that we've seen a decline in new starters and an increase in long-term leavers. I'm wondering if it's, if it's about overall council staffing numbers, and it would be good to have alongside the report the details of the overall staffing numbers in the council. And the second major question on that is about the data breaches, which is looking at why there have been more misdirected emails, what's going on there that's causing the increase in those minor data breaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Can I bring Nolwenn back in for the first point, please?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Reynolds. In terms of the Welsh language, the council approved the Welsh language strategaeth hybu'r iaith Gymraeg, so the Welsh promotional strategy, and there's a clear action plan there around how we can increase the use of the Welsh language within the council, within staff themselves. I can't answer your question as to why a lot of staff aren't prepared to give an account as to where they are with regards to the Welsh language. There's a lot of discussion at the moment about moving away from asking staff whether they believe they're fluent or non-fluent. What is fluent? And I think Welsh Government themselves are querying the use of that word fluent, because fluent to me might be different to yourself, for example. So I think there's work to be done there to create better understanding of what it looks like. But the action plan is in place, and I'm very keen to drive that forward and ensure we do get an increase in the number of Welsh speakers within Neath Talbot Council. With regards to the leavers, I know Sean's got some statistics with regards to the position of the leavers. Sean?
Chair. Sorry. In relation to the overall picture with leavers, the data you've got in front of you is actually comparing 6 months this year compared to 6 months last year, and the number of leavers is only a small increase by 36 when you compare the whole picture this year to last year.
Many thanks, Nolwenn and Sean. Can I bring Craig in on the second point, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds, for the question on it. It's hard to identify any sort of particular patterns in this regard. So you'll see, obviously, there's been a slight increase in the figures, because that's, as an authority, we record anything which has the potential of being a data breach as well as a data breach as well. So, for example, if there was a document that was emailed to an incorrect person, so, for example, if I sent an email to yourself, but it inadvertently went to Councillor Patterson, I would record that as a data breach in that sense, because it wasn't meant for the recipient that it was intended to. As a council, we provide quite detailed training in respect of data protection, and that will include a sort of online platform which all new starters will be undertaking, and then we got an in-depth program which is undertaken on a 2-year basis to make sure that data protection and information governance stays central in people's views. So it's not revealing any significant pattern. It comes down to inadvertent breaches is probably the best way to describe it, where an incorrect address is being used. There could be a scenario where instead of it being c.griffiths2, somebody has just done c.griffiths, maybe, in that sense for it. So a small error in that regard. The positive we can take, though, from these figures is, as we mentioned in the report, the breach panel, which is designed to consider serious breaches or where there could be a detriment ultimately to the council, has only had to be convened once in the last year for the matter, which we identified then in that report. So the positive we can take away is that these are very low-level breaches which have not caused any risks or harm to any individuals, but nevertheless, in the interest of transparency, we record everything for you.
If I can bring Karen, our Chief Executive, in, please.
Just to give you some further assurance as well, we have something called a corporate governance group, which is chaired by Noelwen. And one of the things that that group is responsible for doing is reviewing any data breaches and looking at whether there's any corrective action that's needed in fairly quick time. So we don't wait to rely on the quarterly performance reports. We've got a group that is continuously looking at these sorts of things to make sure if there is anything that's systemic that we are picking that up and giving it attention.
Thank you, Craig and Karen. Councillor Reynolds, would you like to come back?
Thank you. Seems to cover the bases. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on item 11, please? I can't see any indication, so we'll move forward on this. This report is for monitoring only. We'll now return to the Cabinet Scrutiny agenda and look at agenda item 5, which is the forward work programme, which is listed on pages 13 to 14 of the Cabinet Scrutiny papers. This item is just for noting, unless members have any comments. Okay, can't see any indication of comments there. We'll move to agenda item 6, urgent items. You'll be pleased to hear that I have none. Moving along to agenda item 7, access to meetings. This is agenda item 13 in the Cabinet papers as well. I'm happy to propose to resolve to exclude the public. Could I have a seconder, please?
Second, Chair.
Thank you. got a few coming in. Thank you very much. Thank you. Agenda item 8, pre-decision scrutiny of... Oh, sorry.
Wait for the recording to be stopped.
Sorry, Alison.
Please.